think obviously there's a lot of gathering of data and information and comments and responses, and it's quite a small team. The GLA have outsourced this to I think quite a sort of small consultancy to deal with this. So there's obviously going to be natural delays in terms of resourcing whenever we get the final paper.
I just ask Mr. Fraser to switch your mic off, please.
Forgive me. Yes, I've got another point to make, and you.
Thank you. Just to clarify the status of this paper, is it kind of a scoping of the methodology at this stage? Has there been actually any survey work done, or is it just agreeing the broad scope and methodology of the study at this stage?
I wonder if we can take that away and provide. I'm not sure if we've got, Chris, unless you've got the kind of the details of that, the scope to hand. I'd like to provide accurate information to the inspectors in terms of the scope and the programme of that.
I think that would be really helpful, just to know that the timescales that we're looking at, you know, for that study coming forward, you know, if that's a route that we would decide to go down.
I was just going to say the reference I was looking for on here was in the national policy document. Paragraph 4 sets out various aims of government policy, and the one I was looking for was G, little g. One of the government's aims is for local planning authorities to ensure that their local plan includes fair, realistic, and inclusive policies. And obviously, the word realistic is, I've used the word pragmatic on mine as a synonym, say realistic, in terms of the policy and the policy approach.
I'm too used to telling my kids off for being on the mobile phones, obviously, but you're using it for a good purpose, so that's different. I'm too used to telling my kids off for being on the mobile phone, but you're using it for a good purpose. That's
On this one rare occasion, I feel innocent. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Just coming back to policy H10. You know, obviously there's a potential to be relying on it to meet any need in the meantime, any additional need that may come forward in the plan period. So do the criteria set out in policy H10 provide an effective basis for the consideration of sites which may come forward for gypsies, travellers and travelling show people?
Yes, I think they do. Obviously, we've got Part B, which includes requirements for a high quality layout and design, and makes adequate provision for, and then a series of criteria under which that Part B sits. I believe there was some government guidance back in the day, which has now been withdrawn, unfortunately, relating to gypsy and traveller accommodation pitch provision. But we feel that those criteria there encompass the general essence of that guidance.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, you have your nameplate up. Did you have a point in relation to the overall need, provision and policy H10? Because we will be having a specific session on the actual site itself later.
Yes, and I'd just like to first of all thank you for your questioning, because it does limit the scope of what I'm about to say, and I just wanted to make that clear in the outset, because where I'm coming from is the evidence of need and meeting that need. And I should also declare my interest. I was involved in the initial consultation way back in whenever it was, 2013. So I might be able to be helpful, I hope, with this, because we all understand that there is an absolute need here, and it's a great need for a site. But right at the outset, the chosen approach was questioned, and there were doubts whether this would meet the quantum, the need for these pitches. And just by way of clarification, the site that's been proposed at Paul Court initially had a higher number of pitches, and that was the council identified that higher number as the need. But that had to be reduced for practical and pragmatic reasons due to the constraints of the site, and it may even be further reduced due to those constraints. So I'm trying to demonstrate that it was always acknowledged the need was higher than this specific site by the council way back in 2013. That's before any definition changes from the GLA. So I limit that comment there, leave that comment there. I then go back to simply the lack of robust evidence, because we're now on a plan making process, and I realise that's completely different. And the council, I think, has admitted that there is a lack of robust evidence for the quantum. And again, it's notwithstanding any change in the definition. They just said that there was a lack of robust evidence. And I suppose it leaves me inevitably to start to conclude that therefore what's before us, can it be sound if there is a lack of robust evidence to support it? And yet I'm torn, because I wouldn't want to stop, in the pursuit of perfection, you don't want to try to stop something good and adequate. But I must ask that question, and it is in the end your judgment whether it's unsound or not. But I must put it to you that the need was identified as higher. There is the methodology about reviewing the policy, which is in flux in London, but as I would say, that it was flawed in Lewisham in the first place. So this has just compounded an error upon an error, in my view. And there is one further but related constraint that I just want to draw to the inquiry's attention. It might seem prosaic in a way, but the error was a sink, a site of nature conservation. Within this local plan process, this particular site was de-designated. However, that therefore creates another problem, that all the land around it is now a sink and has been enhanced. And through the specialist consultants have said that it's an enhanced sink, and so we now have this absurd position where something has been de-designated, but all the land around it has been brought in to that definition. And it is a confluence of two rivers and quite a special place for biodiversity. So I just throw that in because it's the same plot of land. That's the only reason I put it in. So my real concern is the lack of evidence, and the fact that it's in flux for the GLA. It just compounds the confusion that there has been about this site. The low response rate just confirms the lack of evidence. And I spoke to on many occasions, I've spoke to the Gypsy and Travel Liaison Officer, and I hate to paraphrase, but the simple way of putting her advice to me was it was better than nothing. That's what she said. And that's why they didn't have any other engagement. And my concern is that this is inadequate, but inadequate in any case. So like the learned friend there, well, what is the way forward? It is inadequate.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Simon, did you want to come back on those comments?
Yeah, just a couple of points. Obviously, the 2015, 2006 updated 2016 is the evidence base that the local plan is reliant on. I'm not aware or not sure of the predating evidence that Mr. Hall refers to, but the need is clearly identified in the 2015 and then 2016 updated version. Just a point of clarity and for absolute, obviously we will return to pool court in the site allocations. Part of the site is designated as sink. It remains partly designated as sink. It has not been, there is no attempt by the council to hoodwink anyone here. The sink designation is still on is still within the plan. It's still within part 2 in the green infrastructure and is identified in the site allocation as a key constraint for the site. But clearly we will move on to that and have discussions around that at the site allocations. But I just want, as a point of clarity, the council has not de-designated the sink portion of the site.
I'm not going to argue the toss. I put my point of view, and we will see. But I just want on the evidence point. Perhaps I should have stressed it's not my view that I was quoting. It was in fact the council's own consultants. I think it's AECOM. I think it was them that did a study, and I wrote down in my letter the conclusion. My comments were based on their conclusions, which said it was inadequate, that they knew that this would be inadequate. So it's not Alan Hall's view, it was AECOM's view.
Councillor wish to comment?
I just want to be absolutely clear, as a point of fact, it is designated sink. There is no de-designation within the site.
So were you referring to the consultation, the evidence
The
base?
quantum, the number. I was referring to the planning consultant's report said that the number would be inadequate. I'm sure that's what it said. And I think it is whatever I referenced in my letter it was almost a direct lift from the council's own consultants. And it does bear out the facts anyway, because the pitches that were going to be provided were higher. And that came from the initial assessment. So it's a matter of fact that that the number proposed is less than the council identified in the first place.
The study does identify the need for 6 pitches. The study is quite clear on that.
Just 6 or 6 would be, that's the thing. That's the bit I didn't quite.
Can you speak up a little bit more into the mic?
Sorry,
I'm
apologies
struggling
for
to
that.
hear.
I maybe misinterpreted the study in that case, because I thought that it was saying that there is a need for more, but obviously 6 would be fulfilling that the Poole Court site could only take 6. So in terms of the borough, there is a need for more, but Poole Court itself could only have 6. And that's where we get to that site allocation and broad policy argument, because we're looking at apples and pears.
And I'll come to the council in a minute, but the study up to 2031 identifies a need for 6 pitches. So that's the outcome of that study.
I mean, that really speaks for itself in terms of that point. Just one further point I wanted to make about the criterion-based policy is that looking at this from an application point of view, and indeed from a Section 78 point of view, the possibility of there being unmet need, which emerges obviously from the discussions that we've had and may in due course be recorded in your report, would be something which, if I were, as it were, on the other side, if I was seeking to promote such a site, that would be a powerful factor to pray and aid in front of the development officers, and then in due course, if needs be, on appeal. That's worth bearing in mind in this context.
Okay, thank you. Any other points that the council wanted to address, just arising from Mr. Hall's submissions there? So just moving through my questions, does the site allocated at Poole Court meet the needs for gypsies, travellers and travelling show people and provide a 5-year supply of sites?
For a 5-year supply, yes. The planning application that has been submitted is for 6 pitches on the Poole Court site. And that would meet the 6 pitches required up to 2031.
So the council has more than a 5-year supply, essentially.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Technically up to, well, 7 years.
7
supply,
year, yeah.
Or 6 years, depending when the plan's adopted.
Of course,
That's
course,
another
yeah.
matter. Okay, thank you. I don't think I had any additional points. Clearly, myself and Dr. Bust will need to consider how to move forward with this. But certainly clarification on the study and this issue of travellers who've ceased to travel. That would be really helpful. In the meantime, did you have an additional point? Is that a legacy? So I don't think we can take the discussion much further today. I think it's a decision for ourselves to decide how to take forward the matter. I'm just checking. Bear with me. I've covered everything that we had set out for. Yes. Just been reminded of modifications. I'm obviously too eager to finish. The modifications, will they relate? That's very right. I'll tell you what, we'll ask the council just to clarify, are there any modifications in relation to this policy? And then you can keep us right.
I think we've covered the modifications in terms of the HO policies that we've gone through today, unless I'm mistaken.
I think we've covered some of those modifications in matter 5, haven't we, in last week's session?
Exactly, yeah. So I've done a quick glance at the policies that have been continued forward, and there doesn't seem to be any additional modifications on my list.
Okay, I think that's covered everything that's set out to cover today. Unusually finishing earlier today. So thank you very much. I'm very conscious it has been a long day, I think, particularly from the council's point of view. So thank you very much, and hopefully you'll benefit from a slightly earlier finish today, as will we. I shall adjourn for today's session, and we shall be back here at 9:30 tomorrow. Thank you.